Good morning, everyone. Today we are celebrating All Saints' Day, and in honor of that, we will start the service by singing When the Saints Go Marching In. Refuse to shine. Oh, when the sun refused to shine. Lord, how I'd like to be in that number. Oh, when the sun refused to shine. Oh, when the trump it sounds its call. Oh, when the trumpet sounds its call. Lord, how I'd like to be in that number. Oh, when the trumpet sounds its call. Oh, when the band begins to play. Oh, when the band begins to play. Lord, how I'd like to be in that number. Lord, when the band begins to play. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Lord, how I'd like to be in that number. When the saints go marching in. Our next song today will be We Gather to Celebrate. We gather to celebrate, we gather to praise our God, we gather to dream the dream of love. We gather to celebrate, we gather to praise our God, we gather to dream the dream of love. If God be for us, who can stand against us? If God be for us, we need not be afraid. We gather to celebrate, we gather to praise our God, we gather to dream the dream of love. We gather to celebrate, we gather to praise our God, we gather to dream the dream of love. If God be for us, what can stand against us? If God be for us, we need not be afraid. We gather to celebrate, we gather to praise our God, we gather to dream the dream of love. We gather to celebrate, we gather to praise our God, we gather to dream the dream of love.
A little technical adjustment. And good morning and welcome to Woodland Hills Community Church on this All Saints' Day. This is the day when we especially remember loved ones and others who have gone before us through our thoughts, prayers, and wonderful music. So great to sing together. Let's take a moment to hold those special people in our hearts. As you probably know, Pastor Craig has moved on to his new position as assistant pastor for the Mid-Atlantic Conference, and I just got a text from him yesterday. He made it to New Jersey safe and sound. We are missing him, and will miss him and his wonderful presence for quite some time to come, and we carry very special, wonderful memories of our 13 years together. We send prayers and many blessings to him on this next leg of his journey. So let's together take a moment and send those thoughts to him. I'm Julie Lindsay, and I'll be your worship leader today as we move through the process of searching for an interim pastor. On behalf of Woodland Hills Community Church, welcome to all of you. It's wonderful to see you, and we're so glad to have you with us, either in person or online. For those of you that don't know much about WHCC, there are 3 parts that are essential to our identity. We are a just peace congregation. We are a progressive church, and we are an open and affirming church. If you put those parts together, you get a church that proclaims a gospel that says together, no matter who you are or where you are on life's journey, you are welcome here. And now I invite those of you who are able to stand and join me for the call to worship. On our pilgrimage of faith in a changing and uncertain world,
we do not walk alone, for God is with us.
We remember all those who taught us faith.
The cloud of witnesses whose examples burn bright in our memory.
God of grace, by whose love the world exists.
Show us your face once again and reveal to us your glory.
Please join us now as we sing our opening song, For All the Saints.
Faith confess, your name, O Jesus.
You did it all by yourselves. Don't we have wonderful musicians? We're so blessed. We will now invite all our children to come forward for the children's time with our Children and Youth Director, Marshall. As they come up, let us sing a verse together of This Little Light of Mine.
I'm still recovering from Halloween. I did not steal nearly as much of my kids' candy as I needed to get through the past 7 days. Today we're going to actually be simple. The kids asked me, they're still kind of, I guess, coming down from sugar also. And so just now they said, what are we going to do today? And I said, when we came up here, and I said, you don't have to you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is listen to me talk. This is the literal face one of them made. So, with my true audience in mind, I will be brief. I don't want to assume that you read the weekly newsletter or if some of you are visiting today, but I just wanted to share, we've been doing, for the past 3 weeks now, a series on prayer for the kids, and it's kind of a daunting task because we assume that by our example, the children know how to pray, that it's easy. It's just like, learning to say mama or daddy. But it's really quite complex when you think about it, break it down to simplify it. So one of the first things that we talked about the first week is that you don't have to use the big fancy words. You can just say, "Dear God, today was bad." And that's an entire prayer in and of itself. And so last week we did, and it's in the newsletter, we created a prayer wall. And so what I did was I just put some brown butcher paper on the wall, and I gave the kids a piece of paper, and I said it was their brick, and I wanted them to write a prayer that they had and stick it on the wall. And the kids decorated the wall. It's something we're probably going to do every season. So our fall prayer wall is now hanging up in the Sunday school room. But I want to share with you some of the things that are on our prayer wall, because if you did see the newsletter, it didn't really get into detail of what some of their prayers are. So, some of the bricks said, "I pray to have a wonderful future. I pray to have a beautiful life." This one, I just wonder if our 3-year-old wrote it, because, but it says, "I pray to get a good job." They're already concerned about getting good jobs. "I pray for watermelon." It's a complete prayer. "I pray that Pastor Craig does well in New Jersey." "I pray that our friend is happy in heaven." "I pray for my family to be safe and that we have a wonderful life." "I pray for nature and I think this person wrote it with the holiday coming up in mind, "I pray for an Xbox." So, but again, what I really wanted to teach the children is that whatever their requests are, we say that we can boldly go to God with them. And so that's just kind of a sample of what their prayers are. We're continuing this week, our final week on prayer. But if you interact with children in your circle of influence, first of all, these are the babies that created the prayer wall. Can you give them some love? Good job, guys. And if you can, model prayer for them. It doesn't even have to be something super deep where you say, let's sit down and let's formally pray. Dear Thouest Father, that's so unimportant. Even if just you're walking and you go, you know what, later on, I want to make sure that I pray for fill in the blank. It's really that simple. So I want to thank you for your time and attention today. I know today's lesson was low-key, but I'm saving my energy for the littles. In fact, our craft today has to do with coffee. So thank you guys so much. Okay, kiddos, let's go.
Well, that was a lesson for the next step in our worship together, yes? As we prepare today to receive today's reading and the following message, you might want to make it simple. Let's pray and talk to God and meditate for a couple of minutes. There are many ways that God speaks to us. One is through time of silence, like we just experienced. Another is through beautiful music. Today, Gracie will be with us with a special piece of music called What a Wonderful World.
We're also going to give Bill a chance to reset the slides. We had Erica upload some photos for us. It took a while for the formatting to happen, so hopefully you'll see some photos of our congregation, and we haven't had a look at them ourselves yet, so fingers crossed.
I see trees of green.
Such beautiful memories. The sacred reading this morning is from Psalm 32, verses 1 through 7. In it, the psalmist, traditionally King David, expresses the joy of being released from great suffering. The whole psalm is divided into two parts. Verses 1 through 5, the psalmist proclaims the joy of seeing his wrongdoing forgiven. In verses 6 and 7, he shows his confidence that God is the guide on the right path. Listen now as Jonathan reads from the Common English Bible, and then Andrea will be with us to share her thoughts as our guest speaker this morning.
The one whose wrongdoing is forgiven, whose sin is covered over, is truly happy. The one the Lord doesn't consider guilty, in whose spirit is no dishonesty, that one is truly happy. When I kept quiet, my bones wore out. I were groaning all day long, every day, every night. Because your hand was so heavy upon me, my energy was sapped as if in summer drought. So I admitted my sin to you. I didn't conceal my guilt. I confess my sins to the Lord, is what I said. Then you removed the guilt from my sin. That's why all the faithful should pray to you during troubled times, so that the great flood of water won't reach them. You are my secret hideout. You protect me from trouble. You surround me with songs of rescue.
Thank you, Wayne. I'm a little taller than some people. For those of you that don't know me, I'm going to introduce myself like I introduce myself to all the middle schoolers that I work with. My name is Andrea Frazer Paventi. Some people call me Miss Frazer, but most people call me Miss Frizzle. I'm 6 feet tall, I don't drive a school bus, and I don't play basketball. So that's a little information for you right there. So we can get all of that out of the way, and now we can concentrate on the message. So it's an honor to be here today. Speaking in the church that my parents took me to. I got baptized here 52 years ago. And Salah, it was said a lot in the reading, means listen and pay attention. And it feels like for 52 years I've been listening and paying attention and trying to figure out who this God is that flows through me and I know flows through you. And so much of it really came true for me when I really felt a connection to God was through this topic of forgiveness. So I'm really happy to be speaking about that today, and hopefully some of you can relate. And as I hear in another program that I'm part of, take what you like and leave the rest. That's how it works. Okay, I'm gonna start with this. One evening, an elderly Cherokee brave told his grandson about a battle that goes on inside people. He said, "My son, the battle is between two wolves inside of us all. One is evil. It is anger, envy, jealousy, sorrow, regret, greed, arrogance, self-pity, guilt, resentment, inferiority, lies, false pride, superiority, and ego. The other is good. It is love, peace, joy, serenity, humility, forgiveness, kindness, benevolence, empathy, truth, compassion, and faith." The grandson thought about it for a minute and then asked his grandfather, "Which wolf wins?" The old Cherokee simply replied, "The one you feed." And I'd like to ask you to think about that today as I speak about this topic of forgiveness. What wolf inside of you are you feeding? Because that makes, at least for me, all of the difference in my walk of faith and in dealing with other people. So I want to bring up a movie. I was supposed to go last night with my daughter, who's here with my husband, to a movie. Maybe some of you have heard of it, called Encanto. It was at the Hollywood Bowl, and the singers that actually voice the actors were going to be there. I'm still getting over a cold, so I made the decision to stay home and not get stuck on a bus and have to use the restroom or something like that. And in it, if you've seen it, you can look at it two ways. You can look at it as a story of a family that sings and dances, and a cute little girl named Mirabelle finally gets to get her gift, and everything's happy. But if you look at the deeper meaning, it's really a story about generational trauma. The grandmother went through a terrible, terrible experience, and instead of healing from it, she took it out on her family subconsciously. It looked good on the outside. It was a beautiful home. They were the center of the town. They were well respected. They were safe, but they were hiding a secret, and they were hiding a secret based on this grandmother's past. She wasn't willing to look at it, and a lot of it has to do with forgiving herself. If you're like me, there's been a time in your life where you've been faced with a truth about yourself that you don't want to look at. I had that experience over COVID. I was blessed with the opportunity to be told by different members of my family things that weren't really working for them. Some anger, some pride, some rage at times. Not all the time, but at times I was just so frustrated I would just blow. And that's because I wasn't looking at the truth in my life. And that doesn't mean that I'm a bad person, but like it said in the psalm, it said at the very beginning, it said, "The one whose wrongdoing is forgiven, whose sins is covered, is truly happy." I wanted to be happy. And if you asked me 3 years ago, was I happy, I would have said yes. But the truth is, like the psalmist, I kept quiet. And then my bones were worn out. And I was groaning all day, every day, every night on the inside. And like that grandmother, I wasn't willing to bring the truth into the light. And the actual details don't really matter. But the bottom line is that I realized that if I didn't take a look at this, I would be bleeding all over people that never cut me. And I didn't want to do that anymore. And so how do I do that? How do I let go of some of the ways that I've been dealing with life? And the only way for me was to bring God in, and it brought in the topic of forgiveness. So let's look at that. What are some definitions of forgiveness? The Bhagavad Gita says, if you want to see the brave, look to those who can return love for hatred. If you want to see the heroic, look to those who can forgive. I'd like to add, and get into a deep partnership, raise teenagers, and go work for the public school system. Another definition that I loved, it was actually an example, was dealing with two ex-prisoners. One said, have you forgiven your captors yet? And one said, no, never. And the first one says, well, they still have you in prison, don't they? And I'm going to add two more. One of the definitions of forgiveness that I've always loved, but I didn't know what to do with it. And so the second part of my talk is going to talk about what we can do to forgive. But forgiveness, not forgiving somebody, is like drinking a poison and expecting the other person to die. Not helpful. One of the best things that I heard about forgiveness, because, and I know a lot of people in this parish have experienced loss. We saw it on the screen behind us today. Forgiveness for me was a decision, because I've experienced my own loss, which I won't get into today, but it is a decision and a firm belief that everything happened exactly the way as it was supposed to happen, or it wouldn't have happened. And that took me a long time to get to, but it was the only way that I found peace, or I would be angry at God forever. And I had to believe that despite some loved ones being lost from me and taken from me, that if I stood in the chains of that unforgiveness, it's like one piece of anger is a rock, and another piece, and the blame and the shame, and you did this, and you did this, and this shouldn't have happened. And suddenly I have a backpack full of rocks. And yes, I can go through my life, but it's heavy. And wouldn't it be easier just to put that backpack down? It sure would be. But how? How do we do it? So I want to talk about that. So coming from the perspective of, and it was a very hard decision to make, but I boiled it down to 3 words. Everything's unfolding perfectly. It just is. It is unfolding perfectly. If I could let go of those rocks, maybe I could have my hands open to be there for some other people. but to start to be there for other people, to go back to the story of my family and what I learned over COVID. I had to look at myself. And so how did I do that? And this is what I'm going to talk about. I had to decide at first, when I heard these things about myself, I said, how dare you? I've done X, Y, and Z, and 1, 2, 3, and my ego took a hit. Well, ego, people, stands for edging God out. And if God is for me, and God loves me, then what other people say about me is really none of my business. Maybe some of it is the truth. And maybe I can just stand there and put the rocks down and stay open and go, and just look at it. Is this true? And for a lot of it, the answer was yes. So how do I forgive myself? On the outside, I'm shiny, I'm happy, I look good, things are happening, but I wasn't able to necessarily always feel that way on the inside. And the people that are closest to you, they're not there to hurt you. And I realized that I did not have to respond in anger. The people that are closest to me are the people that are my greatest mirror. And I can either take that and respond in rage and blame and shame, or I can say thank you for this golden opportunity to let go of who I think I am and become the person God has wanted me to be all along, that I couldn't do because I was blocked from that ego. And so I took 3 simple steps. And a lot of you know I'm in 12-step. I take Pastor Craig with me with that. But step 1 is my life is unmanageable. And that's a hard thing to admit. But you know what, people? My life was unmanageable. I couldn't, at the time, make a solid living. I mean, I was, but not to my ability. I was angry, I was blaming, I was an ego. So my life was unmanageable. That's step 1. That's a great place to be, because when your life is unmanageable and the pieces are on the ground, that's an opportunity to bring God in and build it up in a completely different way. So I can't, that's step 1, my life is unmanageable. Step 2 came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. I had to make that decision that life was unfolding perfectly. Everything's unfolding perfectly. And step 3 gave my will and my life over to the care of God as I understood him. So step 1 is pretty simple. For those of you that aren't in 12-step, I'm going to make it super simple. I can't, God can, so I'll let him. That's it. Or her, they, them, whatever you want to call God. So that sounds good. How does it work? And here's just some simple steps that worked for me. I made a decision to never again, never, ever make my family, my kids, my husband, my friends, my mother, my circumstances responsible for my feelings ever again. Not even 1%. I'm 100% responsible. So the good news is that I'm 100% responsible. But the bad news is my life is unmanageable, right? So if I'm 100% responsible, how do I do it? I let go. I forgive myself by letting God in so I can. And it took a while. Every day was so hard. But every day we stay current. It is not helpful, and I've learned this. I would bring into conversations if somebody was mad at me, I would say, yeah, well, you did X, Y, and Z in 1, 2, 3. Not helpful. The answer is, thank you so much for sharing. Let me think about that. I appreciate that. No matter what they say, even if they say it with a ton of vitriolic hate, or how I perceive it, because that is not their truth. That is their anger and their fear and their hurt. And maybe, just maybe, I was part of it. And maybe I wasn't. Maybe that had something to do with somebody else and they were blaming and shaming me. But that's their story. They don't need me to tell them. The answer is for me to shut up and listen. And that's it, because if my ego's not there and God is there, I can actually do that. So I stay on my side of the street. I'm not a victim. So if I'm not a victim, I can't blame and shame, and I can't say it's your fault, which leaves me with a lot of discomfort. But I also made the decision I wasn't going to drink over the discomfort. And my husband's here. He is the handsomest man on the planet. But I do have another boyfriend named Sam Huhan, who is from Outlander. And but, even if Sam came knocking on the door, I can't go, live out a fantasy with somebody else either. My husband is my greatest teacher. And he has his hurts and his fear. It doesn't mean that I'm going to put up with bad behavior. Not that he ever has bad behavior. But I can set a boundary with love and say, this isn't working for me right now. I don't have to use you statements. I don't have to blame. I can say, thank you for sharing. I'm going to take a break right now and think about this. It's perfectly okay. I So I also made a decision to pray and meditate daily. I'm one of those woo-woo people. I did it today before I came. I just sit in silence for 10 minutes, and I ask God to come in. Because sometimes when we're upset and we're angry and we're not willing to forgive a situation that happened, maybe a loss in our life or somebody that hurt us, if we're not willing to do that, oftentimes it's because we think we need to fix it or that we're in charge, and we're not. I'm not in charge, and I'm humble enough to say my broken brain can't fix the broken pieces in my life. Only God can. So I want to start landing the plane. Buckle your seatbelts. We're about to enter into the final destination. I wanted my life to be like this Encanto. I wanted flowers everywhere. I wanted to be like Isabella with the flowers. That's who I wanted to be, is Isabella. She is the character that was considered the beauty in the movie, and her life was perfect. But if you've watched the movie, you saw that her life was far from perfect, and she was kidding herself. And it turns out I was really more like the grandmother, holding on to secrets, but we're only as sick as our secrets. But then I was looking at the movie, and I'm also like Mirabelle, because while I'm hearing about all the things that I have, quote unquote, done wrong, or whatever the case is, yes, that's true, I've made my mistakes, for sure. But also, I was like Mirabelle that was also given a story from my family, good, bad, whatever, that told me how life was going to be. And that wasn't necessarily the case for me. And so now I was like Mirabelle with my glasses looking around going, what's happening? I was like, because I was working and taking care of 2 kids, and one of there were some changes in my family with one of my kids too. My son became my daughter, and that was a very big change. There's a lot of the story that I thought was going to be my child's life did not end up being the story. And guess what? It's not my business. My children get to live their story. Everybody gets to have their story, but I get to have my story too. So I also, going into Encanto, who was my character that I forgot? I got Mirabelle. Okay, that's my time. Well, we'll go to Bruno, but we don't talk about Bruno, right? We don't talk about Bruno. But actually, that's the whole point of this sermon, this message, is that we do talk about Bruno. When we don't talk about Bruno, we're living in the dark. We're underground. So the only way to forgive, just like Bruno, is to talk about stuff. And I'm going to end with this. What if all this pain we've gone through, if it's all unfolding perfectly, but we want peace and serenity and joy, what if the only way to the peace, serenity, and joy is through the pain? What if we don't avoid the pain and just feel our feelings, and we don't oversex, overdrink, overeat, blame, shame, make other people responsible for us? It's just us. We're like Bruno now, stuck in the dark, in the earth. And you know what? Sometimes there's a time for that. Life is not a Disney movie, as much as I wish that it was. Sometimes we're in the bottom. We're in the pit, and we can just sit there. And if we can sit there in our blame and our shame and look at ourselves and bring God in, like that key that Mirabelle had finally, if that was our gift, and we look up little by little, the light shines through, and there's so many people above the earth that want to be there with us. And when we get up, there are some people that aren't happy for us. It's too much for them. It's too much for them. And you know what? They get to have their story. I am 100% responsible for myself. And so, as it said in the reading, Salah, listen, meditate, look around. And I want to end with this. We saw all those pictures behind us. I wish I had sent one of my father-in-law, of my grandmother Stella, of my father. I didn't. I forgive myself. But I want to say that when we look, our lives are so short. And we don't know how long our loved ones are going to be with us. Don't miss it. If somebody wants to come back into your life, set boundaries. Do what you need to do so that you don't get hurt, but let them in. Salah, look, love, Salah. They are here now. I went to a funeral 3 weeks ago for a 16-year-old trans boy. He was not willing to wait for the miracle. The family in Encanto, their name meant miracle. Don't give up before the miracle. It starts with you. It's not outside of you. It's not if you get a better job, if your kids behave, if your husband behaves, if your wife behaves, if your health. No, it's all excuses. My opinion. It's my opinion. And if you don't like it, that's okay. You get to have your story. But if we are not a victim in our lives, then we can allow that light in, that God in, and we can have the key. So forgive and love and let people be there for you and love them. Even if they've made mistakes, love them. Because I do believe that's why we're here on earth, and that's what God would want us to do. Because otherwise, what's the point? We're just walking around in our ego. So don't edge God out. Forgive and love. And thank you for letting me share today. I took her script. Hang on. Here's your script. I forgive myself.
I got it. I'm not 6 feet. Thank you so much. In all of that, I have a favorite saying, be still and know that I am God. And that's kind of what came out of what you said, taking that time to do that. Now is the time in our service when we share the joys and concerns that have been brought to us into the worship this morning. So let's see what we've got here. Alrighty, oh, good, my goodness. Okay, just continuing prayers for Allison's husband, Rob, as he works on recovering from his serious illnesses. He's still in the hospital and needing assistance with respiratory and other things. So it's been about 4 weeks now, and he's still in the hospital. From Betsy. A safe journey as Pastor Craig drives east, and for Pam and David Eichner as they start their journey from Montana back to Woodland Hills. From Gina, prayers for all people who are in the process of evaluating their choices and voting for our leaders. We're not supposed to be political, please vote. Prayers, and that wasn't about her, that was about what I said to you. From the Wilkins family, prayers for Emma's dad as he still remains in the hospital. Prayers that he gets moved to a suitable care home soon. Again from the Wilkins family, prayers for the Mander family as they come to terms with their beloved son, brother, and father. From Nita, my cousin Larry Autry passed away yesterday. Prayers for his sons, Justin and Jason. From Linda Leland, please remember Karina Darcy, November 7th birthday. She would have been 71. She left us July 4th. And from a friend, prayers for Pam McCoy and her sister who grieve for the loss of their mother, Mary Jordan, who passed on November 12th. As we remember these joys and concerns, let us go into a time of silent prayer as we sing the call to prayer, Deep Peace. When we finish, we will hold a time of silence in place of communion before I close with a prayer.
Peace, peace, deep peace, my peace I give to you. Peace, peace, deep peace, my peace I give
Dear God, we gather this day. We celebrate the love that you have blessed us with. We know there are many things going on in our lives, great joys and deep sorrows. Grant each of us the strength to deal with those challenges and the wisdom to celebrate the joys. We give thanks for the many ways in which you support us on our journeys, one of which is through the prayer that Jesus left with his followers, a prayer that we now say together. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Each week, we here at WHCC are blessed to have 3 ways you can live out our faith. First, you can financially support the ministries, the church, by texting WHCC 833-575-1738. Second, you can sign up to receive the weekly email and other special notifications by texting WHCC to 42828. And I would really urge you to read the Thursday email. You'll really know what is going on, and it will fill in gaps and questions that you may have. Third, you can get involved in the life of the church by signing up to volunteer. You can do so by contacting our volunteer coordinator, Jeannie Mowers, or by emailing her at whcvolunteercoordinator@gmail.com. And I want to talk a little bit about opportunities to volunteer. If you look in your bulletin and the Thursday email, you will see requests for your help. Specifically this week, we are asking you to consider being a Sunday morning greeter who can welcome everyone to our church family and worship. If you have never done that before, let me or Betsy know, and we'll be happy to show you how to do that. It gets all set up, and we'll show you, the things you can do to be a greeter. We are also in need of coffee hour service. You will notice that we've moved it into the narthex because it's getting chilly. And walking over to Harder Hall, sometimes people just go to their car, and this way we're hoping that everybody will just stay for a few minutes and chat and share together. So we look forward to being able to do that every Sunday. We can't do that. We need 2 volunteers just so that there's, you can work together to set up and take down. So if you're able to sign up for either of these things, there are sign-up sheets in the back, or get in touch with Jeannie. Thanks so much. Finally, I remind you that we're in the middle of our annual pledge drive. So if you have pledged, thank you so much. If you are considering do so, consider some more. We would love to have your pledge. It makes doing the budget and other things much easier. Finally, actually, I have one more thing. I want to let you know that next Sunday we have a guest preacher. You have seen him before, Scott Furukawa. He came a year ago, September, and he is considering helping us through the holidays into the 1st of January. So we'll welcome Scott next week. Yes.
Just one other thing about our Thursday night lives. Me, Emma, and myself and the family have to go away for a little bit, but we're going to have some volunteers help us keep that running. So if you can just keep an eye on the bulletin just to see what the schedule is for that. And please volunteer. Drop me an email at whccposition2@gmail.com if you want to take part in Thursday Night Lives. All right, thank you.
And now let us join together and sing our closing song, I Sing a Song of the Saints of God.
thousand still. The world is filled with living saints who choose to do God's will. You can meet them in school, on a road, or at sea, in a church, in a train, in the shops, or on tea, for the sakes of a life, you and like me, and I mean to be one too.
And now let us end our time of worship together by singing our closing chorus on Eagle's Wings. This will serve as our benediction as well, so we'll sing it through, I'll do it. We'll sing it through twice. Go in peace.